Hello guys, in this video we're going to talk about the imperfect market. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Imagine you want to buy a second-hand Toyota from someone who you met in an online marketplace for second-hand cars. To what extent can you negotiate the price and bring it down? Will the seller disclose all the information about the Toyota they want to sell to you? Are there many other sellers of second-hand Toyotas? Most importantly, is the price set by the overall market equilibrium, or can you influence it? You will probably be able to bring down the price even if it's just by 100 euros. That means that you can influence the price, and the seller isn't likely to disclose all the accidents they might have engaged in, but you still end up buying their car. In this case, you just participate in an imperfect market. This explanation will help you understand everything you need to know about imperfect markets. What is the definition of imperfect market? Imperfect markets refers to any economic market that does not meet the rigorous standard of the hypothetical perfectly or purely competitive market. Pure or perfect competition is an abstract, theoretical market structure in which a series of criteria are met. Since all real markets exist outside of the spectrum of perfect competition model, all real markets can be classified as imperfect markets. In an imperfect market, individual buyers and sellers can influence price and production. There is no full disclosure of information about products and prices, and there are high barriers to entry or exit in the market. Now is understanding the imperfect markets. All real-world markets are imperfect. Thus, the study of real markets is always influenced by competition for market share, high barriers to entry and exit, different products and services, prices set by price makers rather than by supply and demand, imperfect or incomplete information about products and prices, and small number of buyers and sellers. For example, traders in the financial market do not possess perfect or even identical knowledge about financial products. The traders and assets in the financial market are not perfectly homogeneous. New information is not instantly transmitted, and there is a limited velocity of reactions. Consequences of imperfect markets. Not all market imperfections are harmless or natural. Situations can arise in which too few sellers control too much of a single market, or when price fails to adequately adjust to material change in market conditions. It is from this instance that the majority of economic debates originates. Some economists argue that any deviation from perfect competition models justifies government intervention in order to promote increased efficiency in production and distribution. Such interventions may come in the form of monetary policy, fiscal policy, or market regulation. One common example of such interventionism is antitrust law, which is explicitly derived from perfect competition theory. Types of imperfect markets. When at least one condition of a perfect market is not met, it can lead to an imperfect market. Every industry has some form of imperfection. Imperfect competition can be found in the following structures. First is monopoly. This is a structure in which there is only one seller. Product offered by this entity have no substitutes. These markets have high barriers to entry and a single seller who sets the price on goods and services. Price can change without notice to customers. The example is Google has over 90% of search engine traffic and can be considered a monopoly in the UK. Second is oligopoly. This structure has many buyers but few sellers. These few players in the market may bar others from entering. They may set price together, or in the case of a cartel, only one takes the lead to determine the price for goods and services, while the others follow. Example: the Airbus and Boeing are good examples of oligopoly market structures. In this type of market, you have these two companies producing almost half of the world's commercial aircraft. Monopolistic competition. In monopolistic competition, there are many sellers who offer similar products that can be substituted. Businesses compete with one another and are price makers, but their individual decisions do not affect the others. Monopsony and oligopsony. These structures have many sellers but few buyers. In both cases, the buyers is the one who manipulates market price by playing firms against one another. Example, there are many tobacco sellers in the world, but there are only few large companies that produce cigarettes. These few companies are the buyers who buy from many tobacco sellers in the world. They can easily negotiate and bring down the prices. The disadvantage of imperfect markets. Markets can become too incongruent if price fails to keep pace with change in a marketplace. In both ways, consumers end up being harmed. Therefore, an imperfect market can be quite harmful to an economy. Some of the main disadvantages of imperfect markets are: some new businesses might come up with innovative ideas that help society in general, but it may be too hard to implement them if they were to enter an imperfect market usually. These markets have tough entry barriers. They could also find it hard to establish themselves as a brand due to harsh competition. As in many types of imperfect markets, there is little competition. There are not many incentives for companies to keep developing and coming up with innovative products that would significantly benefit consumers. Governments often interfere in cases where there are imperfect markets that significantly harm consumer welfare. They do so by providing new regulation to the markets through fiscal policy or monetary policy. One of the most common types of regulation includes antitrust laws. However, government intervention is not always the best remedy to imperfect markets. This is because the government policy could also be flawed. Government actors may not have right information at hand to intervene correctly. Where there is disadvantage, there also be advantage of imperfect markets. Although imperfect markets can harm consumers and economic welfare in general, they also have some benefits. The benefits of imperfect markets include the incentives firms have to come up with the product differentiation to be able to attract as many customers as possible and influence the prices. Imagine how boring it could be if we lived in a perfect market and everyone carried around identical products. Next is imperfect markets versus perfect market. Perfect markets are characterized by having the following. First, an unlimited number of buyers and sellers. Second, identical or substitutable products. 3. No barriers to entry or exit. 4. Buyers have complete information on products and prices. 5. Companies are price takers, meaning have no power to set prices. What is an example of imperfect markets? Let's find out the example. First is monopolies and oligopolies. An organization could have established a monopoly, so it can charge price that would normally be considered too high. The same situation arises in an oligopoly, where there are few competitors that there is no point in competing on price. Second is state intervention. Governments may intervene in a market, usually to set price below the actual market level. When this happens, the excessive quantity is purchased. The reverse situation can also occur when a government imposes such a high regulatory barriers that few companies are allowed to compete. 3. We have stock market. The stock market can be considered an imperfect market, since investors do not always have immediate access to the most recent information about the issues of securities. Differing products features. An imperfect market can exist when competing products contain different features. When this is the case, buyers have difficult time comparing the products and so may pay too much for them. That's all for the imperfect market. Thank you for watching and have a good day.